Hey, how are you guys doing? Hope you're doing well today. I thought we would take a moment and talk about joy again. Woo! It is hot out today. So you guys saw a couple of quick moments from the ride, and it's warm out there today. I think it's about 95 degrees, super humid and windy. So originally I thought I might talk to you outside mid-ride, but it's just too much of all of those things for that. So I am indoors. This is our student ministry building at our church. And as I mentioned to you just a moment ago, out on the ride, I'd like for us to talk about joy again. And specifically, I thought we might talk about joy as it applies to mission, or better, maybe perhaps better said, finding joy through mission. There's an autobiography that I have been reading over the past couple of weeks by a missionary named John G. Paton. John Paton famously was a missionary to the people of New Hebrides in the between 1860 and roughly 1890. And John grew up loving the Lord. He was raised by godly parents, and he knew from an early age that he wanted to devote his life to the Christian ministry. So he trained for ministry. He began serving in ministry. Paton did at a relatively young age. As a young man, he began serving in Glasgow, Scotland. He was Scottish, and he was overseeing a street mission that at first nobody was attending, nobody was coming to. The ministry was in shambles, but because of John's devotion to the Lord and his devotion to the ministry, in relatively short order, hundreds of people began coming to his sermons, to hear his sermons preached. They would come on Sunday mornings to hear the word taught through what we would call Sunday school. John himself would get up before the sun rose on Sunday mornings and go and knock on people's doors, reminding them about church, asking them to attend church with him. And again, there were hundreds. I think over 400 people were coming. Hundreds of people were saved and won to the Lord. But as all of that great ministry, is happening, John begins to sense in his heart that God is calling him overseas to unreached peoples, the people of the New Hebrides, cannibalistic people. He often refers to them, this is a different time, a different place, but he would refer to them as the heathen. And we wouldn't use that terminology today, but that's the way that they spoke during Mr. Paton's era. And so God just began to burden his heart for these peoples. But he was wrestling because he had this great ministry, this great mission that the Lord was blessing in Scotland. And so early in his autobiography, he talks about this wrestling, and he writes that he began to hear over and over internally what we would call the Great Commission, Matthew 28, verses 18 through 20. Go and make disciples of all the nations, teaching them to obey all that I have commanded you, and know that I'm with you always, even until the end of the age. And Paton wrote that he would hear this ringing in his ears. And I love this. And he said, these were my marching orders. And so he just realized that God would make good. God would continue to bless the ministry in Scotland, but the Lord was calling Paton to relocate, to reach people who had not yet heard about Jesus, people who had not yet heard the gospel proclaimed. And so he went. He embraced these God-given marching orders. And his life was marked by joy and blessing, great hardship as well. John would lose his wife on the mission field, a child on the mission field. He would know incredible hardship and persecution, but yet there was also this joy because he embraced his Jesus-given mission. So what is your mission? To use the terminology that John used, what are your marching orders, Christian? I think about that a lot. What are my marching orders? What is my mission? What is my purpose? What am I to do with the life that I have been given. And I would say that it's the same. It should be the same for all of us. We should arrive at the same conclusion that John did. We should embrace the Great Commission. Go and make disciples of all the nations. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to go to an island people group, or to a people group in Africa or in Southeast Asia. When Jesus says go, it's an assumptive go. It's an as you go about your life, as you go to the store, as you go to work, as you go to school, as you go wherever. Make disciples. These are our clear, Jesus-given, God-authored marching orders. We cannot dispute them or debate them or explain them away. We must, as Christians, embrace them. And I believe that when we do that, we'll find joy. We will receive great joy in this mission. Now, lastly, let me ask this question. What should our attitude be like as Christians, as Christian servants, or as Christian soldiers? That's the way that Paul qualifies it for young Timothy. He says, you're a soldier of the cross. So what should our attitude be like? Are we going to be begrudging servants? Are we going to whine and complain as we receive these marching orders to go and make disciples? In the Old Testament, Micah, the book of Micah, chapter 6, verse 8, I think we find what our attitude should be like when it comes to our mission or our marching orders. Micah 6:8. Micah prophesied, he said, or he wrote, "He has told you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you but to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God?" This should be our approach or our attitude as we engage in our ministry, as we receive our marching orders. Will we do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with God? You have a justice ministry, Christian, to love your neighbor as yourself, to contend for those who are vulnerable, to reach those who have not yet heard the good news of Jesus Christ, to remind people who have already heard about the gospel. That is justice ministry. That is working to restore broken, hurting, sinful people to a righteous, holy, perfect God. That's justice. That's the greatest form of justice the world will ever know. And you're to do it with kindness and with humility. We are all engaged. We're all participating in a difficult era of human history. There is fighting and hostility. Every single day we learn about new forms of brokenness, it seems like, by the minute. And we must remember, as Christians, we have marching orders. We have a mission. We have an attitude that we should adopt in this mission. And if we will, we'll make a difference for the glory of God, and we will find joy unspeakable. All right, I'm going to let you go. I've got to pedal home, get back out there in the heat, and until next time, God bless you. I'm praying for you. Run for joy. Take care.